Most of us know JJ Redick as the beloved NBA sharpshooter. But college was a different story. He wasn't just bullied in college, he was harassed and bullied to the point where he wanted to quit basketball. If you don't want to take my word for it, here's what JJ said himself.
Especially those first 2 years at Duke, I wanted to quit my sophomore year.
A lot of times when players contemplate about quitting, it's normally because they don't have a big role on the team or they don't see their career going anywhere. For JJ, it couldn't be any more opposite. His career was heading in the right direction and he was one of the best players in all college basketball. So you may be sitting there wondering like I was, why in the heck would he even think for a second about quitting basketball? Maybe because at away games, the opposing fans would call his brother gay. Or maybe it's because some of the signs that were brought to the game, I can't even read off 90% of them, but one of them said that he was only slightly less hated than Osama bin Laden. Maybe it's because during the national anthem, not once but twice, a fan yelled out, "F you JJ." Or maybe, and this is the most disgusting thing out of them all, is that fans even started saying they were having sex with his sister who was only 12 years old at the time. How they let these fans say this stuff and bring those signs into the games, I have no idea. Oh yeah, I can't forget to mention the hate was getting so bad, he had to start seeing a therapist.
I spent 3 years at Duke, seeing a therapist.
Really?
Yeah, and it was the best thing for me.
Looking back on it, I believe this is one of the most fascinating basketball stories out there. We're going to dive deep into detail and take a serious look at the time that JJ Redick was bullied so bad he almost quit basketball. Real quick, before we get into this video, on one of my previous ones, I said let's see how many new subscribers we can gain, and we gained over 300 or 400, so let's try to get on this video. Let's try to see how many new subscribers we can gain. If you're new to the channel or simply been watching and not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, I'd really appreciate it. On a serious note, it really means a lot to me when you subscribe because it lets me know that there's people out there enjoying the content. That's all I wanted to say, and if you decide in 2 to 3 weeks you don't like the content, you can always unsubscribe. You're not trapped in, and it's free. That's enough jibber jabber. Without further ado, let's get into it. On a lot of our videos, I normally give you a run through and explain who the player is, but it's JJ Redick. I don't have to explain anything. If you don't know who this guy is, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not going through his life story. All you need to know is that coming out of high school, he was one of the top recruits. He went to Duke and had a successful NBA career. Quite frankly, that's what most people know, and I would say your more advanced fans do remember that he was one of the most hated players of all time. I know, we've been saying that a lot on the channel recently, but we've been taking a look at a lot of the hated players, and it seems like you guys enjoy the videos. Trust me, I don't like to throw that phrase out there lightly, but the past 3 basketball players we've looked at, JJ Redick, Grayson Allen, and Marshall Henderson, they're all some of the most hated basketball players of all time, and there's not another way to say it. In this video though, we're going to take a look at JJ's sophomore year at Duke, aka the year he almost quit. To give a little more context to our story, no, he wasn't just openly hated as soon as he got to Duke. It's not like the first day he stepped on campus, everybody in the country was like, F JJ Redick, I hate him. It wasn't like that. However, his first year at Duke was the beginning of that. We gotta throw it all the way back to 2002 through 2003, which was almost 20 years ago. In his freshman year for Duke, he averaged right at 15 points per game, 2 assists, and 2.5 rebounds. Not too bad. He shot an incredible 40% behind the three-point line, and you gotta remember, back then, they weren't shooting threes like they are nowadays. It's also worth throwing in there that his free throw percentage was 92%. When I think of a sharpshooter, a guy who is known for shooting the basketball, I think of JJ Redick. He had impeccable form and he was just a good shooter. When he shot the ball, you thought it was going in. With him having this great year at Duke, he was a young guy and also playing on one of the best teams in the country. There's one thing that comes with that, and that's cockiness. Cockiness, ego, whatever you want to call it, he had that. Whoa, hold on. Before we go any farther, let me make this clear. I've said this from time to time on the channel, but I'm gonna re-emphasize it. I don't think having an ego is a bad thing. I think basketball is that one sport where you do need to be a little cocky. I hate this narrative that goes around where being labeled as cocky is a bad thing. I disagree. I'm not saying be an a-hole, I'm saying be confident in your abilities, and you gotta have that swagger on the court. You don't want to be a pushover and you don't want to hold your head down because people will walk all over you. But if you got your head up and you showboat and sticking your tongue out, they kind of respect you a little more. Or not really respect you, that was a bad way to say it, but players will look at you and be like, okay, he's confident in his abilities. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, was exactly what JJ Redick was like. He would stick his tongue out, nod his head, and do some other things on the court. If you saw the Marshall Henderson video, I highly recommend you to go check it out. It is a crazy video because he's the definition of a lunatic on the court. It wasn't nothing like that. JJ was a little calmer. But don't get it twisted, if JJ got a bucket on you, he would talk trash to you, and he even talked trash to opposing fans. In a game against Maryland, he talked trash to the owner of the Baltimore Ravens.
Talking shit to the Baltimore Ravens owner when we're kicking their ass at Maryland, and I'm just like, why was I doing those things?
Yeah.
Fast forward in time to his sophomore year, it didn't take too long for the rest of the country outside of Duke to absolutely hate this man. Here's where things start to get interesting and debatable. Why did everybody choose to hate him? Yeah, after he made a shot, he would nod his head, stick his tongue out, he would talk trash to fans, but we saw players all over the country do that. It wasn't nothing, absurd. If you want to say talking trash to the fans, that was the main reason, here's my counter argument. They were cussing him out all throughout the game. It's not like he walked into the gym and singled out fans and targeted them. They were targeting him, he was just retaliating. I think there was numerous reasons he was hated. Let's run through them real quick. Number one, the most obvious, he played for Duke. Duke is one of those schools, and it's been this way for the longest, people don't like because they have all these rich and snobby kids. I'm not really talking about the basketball team, I'm talking about the students. It's one of those preppy schools where you get the vibe that the people that go there feel like they're better than everybody else. Reason number two, and it may sound silly, but hear me out, he was really good. When people are good at something, it doesn't matter if it's basketball, football, or anything in your real life, the natural born instinct of humans is to hate on it. When somebody's good at something, you're always going to have somebody criticizing you. Reason number three, he's an unathletic basketball player that can shoot. Why is that one important? Because it made him relatable to people like me and you and just people who casually play basketball. I don't mean this as disrespect to JJ Redick, it's just a cold hard truth. When you look at him, he doesn't look like a basketball player. If you didn't know who he was and you saw him walking down the street, you wouldn't think this guy was a star in the NBA. So what that means and where I'm trying to go with this, you can relate to Redick. Non-athletic people sitting on their couch eating Cheeto Puffs watching Duke play could sit and look at JJ and go, oh yeah, I could do what he's doing. He's not that much different than me. That's what made him really easy to hate. When you see somebody that's not too much different than yourself, or you don't think they're that much different, and they're out there excelling in life, you're gonna hate on them. Or I'm not physically talking to you, I'm just talking about how people looked at it at the time. Reason number four, the last one, like we already talked about, he had that ego and swagger to him that people didn't like. Me personally, I loved it because it made the game entertaining. I don't want to go to a basketball game and see a guy score 30 points and have no emotion. That's why we watch it. We want entertainment. Whether it's the NFL or the NBA, college basketball or college football, we want that emotion on the field. So when you go home after a long night of work on a Thursday night, turn on your TV, and Redick just hit his fifth three and he's walking down the court sticking his tongue out, it made you want to watch the game. It all goes back to one thing though. He was good, and not just good, but he was really good. That's what pissed off people the most. Just like Marshall Henderson we talked about not too long ago. He was cocky and arrogant, but you really couldn't say nothing to him because he backed it up on the field. I said the field, Matt. Get your head in the game, I mean the court. His sophomore year was almost identical to his freshman year. He jumped up his points, but only to 15.9 per game. He had 3 rebounds and right at 1.6 assists. Once again, shot 40% from the three-point line and had a free throw percentage of 95. Unfortunately, his sophomore year came with a lot, and I mean a lot of problems. I want you to imagine getting hated so much to the point where you have to go see a therapist.
I spent like 3 years at Duke, like seeing a therapist. I mean,
really?
Yeah, and it was like the best thing for me.
The next clip I'm about to show you really puts it into perspective. He couldn't even escape the hate when he was at his own university.
You know, even like on campus, we were in the middle of North Carolina. So, you know, the woman who spreads your cream cheese on your bagel in the morning at the food hall is talking shit to you. And you're like, what? I can't escape this.
Right.
I can't go anywhere.
Little did JJ Redick know, the worst of the worst would happen on January 21st in 2004.
I think the worst episode was definitely at Maryland last year. The first time where I'd seen a reference to my little sister, who was 12 at the time, and somebody had made a sign saying that they had sex with her, which I thought was pretty gross, pretty sick and twisted.
Even though that was the lowest of lows, this was also around the time when he took on the role of the villain. He had one of his best games and scored 26 points. Although Duke escaped Maryland with a win that night, JJ Redick could not escape the Maryland fans. Somebody wound up leaking Redick's phone number and the Maryland fans got a hold of it and they texted him what was said 50 to 75 times a night saying outrageous things. No, that didn't just happen a couple nights, it happened all throughout the season. When JJ talked about it, he was laughing, saying, who has time to text and call people at night saying hateful things, and that's how I stand on it. In his sophomore season, as the year continued to progress, he led the Blue Devils to a 31-6 record and they made it to the Final Four, but they lost to UConn in the national semifinal game. In that ball game, Redick had 15 points, but shot a not so hot 4 for 12 from the field. Following that sophomore year, JJ Redick would then be pulled into Coach K's office where he told him, quote unquote, "We didn't win a national championship because you weren't worthy to be a champion." Those words came from Coach K's mouth and he said them directly to JJ Redick and looked him in his eyes. I think we can all agree those are somewhat harsh words, but Coach K was right. JJ even admitted to it, he wasn't in great shape and he was out partying and he was living the life as a quote unquote frat kid. In that summer though, he stated he regained his passion for basketball, lost 15 to 20 pounds, and he got 2 times better. Here's what JJ said about it. "I still think about that. It hurt so bad. And truthfully, I made sure the rest of my career that a coach couldn't say that about me." He was 100% correct. As a 19-year-old kid to hear that though, man, it was so devastating. Also adding, and I really like this, maybe some of it is like a feeling of betrayal. I know that sounds weird, and looking back, I did. I betrayed him my sophomore year. I betrayed the program my sophomore year. If you don't know what he means by that, he's basically saying he didn't take basketball that serious and he didn't give it 100% effort. In the next couple of years, he went off and took his game to another level. He averaged 21.8 points per game as a junior, and as a senior averaged a whopping 26.8 points per game. His 3-point percentage his junior year was 40%, and as a senior it was 42%. The rest from then on out is history. He went to the NBA and recently he's retired, and he also has a podcast. I don't want to say it's hard to believe some of the stuff that happened to him because I do get the hate, but it was a little extreme. Once again though, like we already talked about, that's what made the game of basketball entertaining, and even to this day, we love the hatred between a player and the fans. It's not as common nowadays because I don't even think they'd allow fans to say some of the stuff they were saying back then. My biggest question I would want to ask JJ, or I'd want to know back then, is just how close was he to actually quitting basketball? I wonder if he was 90% close to quitting, or maybe he just thought about it. Maybe there was only a 10% chance. We hear people say it all the time, oh, I'm gonna quit my job, I'm gonna quit this, I'm gonna quit that, but it never happens. That's my biggest question. It still doesn't deny the fact that he was completely harassed and bullied. I can honestly say without a doubt in my mind, we'll never see this happen again. Let me know your thoughts down below. I am very curious, but with all being said, it's gonna wrap up this video. Hope you enjoyed it, y'all. Peace.